Good morning and welcome to the press conference.
Bonjour et bienvenue.
Cannes competition entry, May-December, a title that takes on new focus as the film progresses. It's a great honor to be able to introduce so many of the film's participants. I will start at the far end of the table with the actor who plays Joe, Charles Melton. I can't resist calling him, however inaccurately, a social butterfly. Among the many performances he's famous for, I'll mention Rafi in Bad Boys for Life and Reggie Mantle in the series Riverdale, which has just wrapped its 7th season. Charles, thank you. Next to him, her fifth appearance with director Todd Haynes, Julianne Moore plays Grace. She's one of the few actors to have won the top prize at the Cannes, Berlin, and Venice film festivals. In 2015, Julianne won an Academy Award, Golden Globe, BAFTA, and SAG Award, among many others, for her role in Still Alice. Julianne Moore. Next to me, actor, producer, and former Cannes jury member Natalie Portman, who plays the role of Elizabeth. She's been nominated 3 times for an Oscar, which she won for Black Swan. In 2015, she wrote, directed, produced, and starred in A Tale of Love and Darkness, which had its world premiere in Cannes. She's also a founder of the LA Angel City Football Club, a women's football team. Natalie. This is Todd Haynes' 5th film to screen in Cannes, following Velvet Goldmine, Carol, Wonderstruck, and most recently, The Velvet Underground. With his series Mildred Pierce, he showed he's also a master of the long form. In Paris, the Centre Pompidou is currently organizing a retrospective of his work that includes a masterclass. It's a great honor to introduce director Todd Haynes. Believe it or not, there's an uncanny number of questions lined up, so I'm going to open the discussion immediately to the floor we have on the right side.
Hey, good afternoon. Jared Milrad with Movie Karma. Question for Natalie and Julianne. We're a nonprofit in Los Angeles focused on inclusion and social impacts in Hollywood, which I know you both care a lot about. Could you speak about, relative to this film, the role of women, evolving role of women in media and how women are treated in media, but also if you could share any hopes that you have for women and other underrepresented groups being able to tell their own stories and having agency to do that?
Well, that's wonderful that your organization focuses on that. And yeah, it's incredible to get to be part of a film like this that has 2 such complex, really human characters that are full of all of the kind of delicious, I guess, conflicts that we all are full of. And so it was incredible to get to see Todd's view of women, which is simply as humans, and allow us to be as messy and as complete as every character, and to have him encourage that all the time.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to say that, obviously women are not a minority group. We're 50% of the global population, so it's important that we be treated as such.
Thank you. On the other side.
Yes. Hello, Florencia Angeles from W Radio in Colombia. Question for Natalie and for Julianne also. Ask you, at the film, where did you prepare your character, and did you look in the source, like the character of Natalie? No, it's only that question. Thank you. How do you prepare?
Well, we talked a lot, Todd and I, before the film, and then once we all got to Savannah, then with Julie and Charles too. So that was really helpful. And then, of course, as an actress, it feels like I had a kind of lifetime of research for leading up to this.
It was a pretty hasty pre-production. You know, I mean, the movie came together very quickly, and it was like sort of a rush of excitement, and we didn't know how much time we would have to prepare, honestly. So we really didn't have a lot, but I think that everyone was so excited to work on this, too excited to work with each other. Natalie and I in particular, have a kind of a interesting symbiotic relationship, and a lot of her character is based on her observations of my character. And there was a point where we didn't even know if I was going to be able to be there before she started to shoot. I mean, it was this sort of nutty stuff. And so we ended up, luckily, all there at the same time, and the production over 23 days, grew organically. So Natalie and I were able to spend time with each other. We were able to work on these scenes together. She was able to build her performance, her actor's performance, based on what I was doing as a character too. So it just kind of, moved along. But I have to say, this script had an amazing muscularity to it. It was really deceptive, because when you first read Sammy Birch's script, it was sort of like, it seems sort of simple, You're like, oh, okay. And then we all found, as we were working on it, it was just unbelievably intricate and intense and like I said, loaded and muscular. So I think we all really leaned into that.
Todd, you're nodding your head to that about the complexity of the script, the richness, the depth. Do you want to add?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Natalie sent me this script in 2020, I think it was, in the middle of COVID, by Sammy Birch, and I read this script, and I was immediately captivated by how it's incredibly restrained way of observing the complexity of this story and all of the characters, and it created this sort of anxiety and excitement about how you interpret the story and how you keep sort of reading and rethinking who these people are and who do you trust and who is viable. And that keeps being peeled back in layers as the story unfolds. And it really sort of begins as a single portrait and becomes a double portrait and then ultimately a triple portrait. And Joe's character kind of emerges and takes center stage by the end of the film in the most nuanced way. But none of that, I had concepts for how to shoot the film and worked with my partners in Savannah. And this was with many new people on this film, as it turned out, with a lot of single-held shots and sustained limited coverage. But you need actors like this to make those frames come alive and to hold the audience's attention and to really make use of all of those layers of information.
Thank you. Charles, before going back to the journalists, I'd like to come back to what Julianne was talking about, the development of the role. And can you tell us about even your preparation before leading up to the auditions and then leading up to shooting?
Yes. When I first read the script and the sides for Joe, I kind of felt this innate understanding to him and had many conversations with Todd leading up to filming. We had a lot of dinners together and just talking about who this man was and just kind of certain aspects of what I've experienced and just drawing parallels and just trusting in Todd and Julie and Natalie.
You mentioned the dinners with Todd, copious dinners.
Long dinners, amazing dinners. Turning on the lights, time to go dinners.
We lived near each other in Savannah, which was great. But Charles also would visit me in Portland when he wasn't around, when he was not shooting. So we started there. It was really, really great process.
Well, I'm also referring to the stuffing yourself in preparation for the role.
Oh, yes.
That was
Yes.
kind of dinner.
Exactly.
Yes, we had vegan quail at the dinner scene, and I ate probably about 2 pounds of that day, and yeah, it was delicious after the first 2 takes, and then I just kept on going. And then I learned from Natalie and Julie that you start with the vegetables and the peas.
Next question is on the right.
Hello. 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 Hello, Medio Maïs for We Love Cinema. A question for Todd and Julianne. If I'm not wrong, it's your 5th collaboration together. I wonder what makes the bond so special, and is there someone you're searching in her and in him that you haven't captured yet?
What makes the bond so special? I don't know. I mean, I feel like, for me personally, I feel like I understand Todd. I feel like I see his point of view. And the minute I read Safe, I was like, oh, I see exactly how this is. I know exactly how this should be. And I hadn't met him before, and I went into audition, and I thought, if I do this and he doesn't like it, I'm not the right person, that I'm not seeing what he's writing. And it turned out that I was seeing what he was writing, and I feel like that's continued to happen for one reason or another. I don't know why. I feel so fortunate to have had this creative partnership. It's like something that you wish for as an actor, and you never. It often doesn't come true. And the fact that I've had this with Todd is unbelievably meaningful and moving to me. So I'm forever and ever grateful.
It's hard to not restate exactly what Julianne said, but I also feel I learn things from watching Julie on every single film we do together. Having known her this long, having her know, I think, me and what I'm writing and what I'm thinking about in a way that sometimes I don't even know. But so uncanny relationship to the medium of film and the lens and the proximity of lens to subject. There is always something that I can't even determine in the room shooting that you see on the film itself with her. And it's just, it comes with incredible experience, knowledge, and intuition. It's just something that I believe she had from the very beginning. So I can't. So that's, and a lot of my films are about where you don't say everything on the page or show everything in the scene, and you need a space for audiences to be encouraged and interested in filling in, and this is the kind of actor that makes that possible.
Thank you. Question on the left.
Hi, this is Rodrigo Fonseca from Brazil. Question from G-Show to Mr. Todd Haynes. This film reaffirms your long partnership collaboration with Afonso Gonçalves, your editor. I would like to understand your process of work with him. What do you discover with him from film to film? Thank you very much.
Fonzie. He was just with us in Paris and had to go off and do a film in Brazil, actually, which he hasn't done in a while. And so we miss him, and we wish he was here. I know he would love to be here. I've worked with Afonso since Mildred Pierce, and I had very, very close and important relationships with editors before Fonzie came into my life, starting with Jim Lyons, who cut my first several films and acted in Poison, and was my partner, and was just one of the great, filmmaking artists that we all knew. You and I knew, and but Fonzie is an incredible editor with an incredible sense of knowledge. Again, something very intuitive and sensual about the way he cuts. We work in a pretty funny way, but it's worked for us, where he will watch dailies like most editors do during a shoot and make an assembly of a film while cutting. And then I finish shooting and I can't look at anything that's been cut. I have to start myself going through the dailies myself usually in my bed with a notepad, and I do these ridiculously ornate notes, take by take by take, scene by scene by scene, and I give them a little shot sort of plan for each scene. And that's the thing I need to see first, and then after that we come together and we figure it all out, because that won't work, and then I'll say, what did you do? What did you do here, Fonzie? And he'll show me what he did. And it's in this dialogue that begins separately that we come together. And then from then on, we are together every second of the process. And it's been a really fruitful and thrilling way of making films.
Thank you. On the right.
Hello. I'm Etienne from Watch Buddy in France. First off, congratulations for the movie. It was great, I thought. I have a question for Miss Portman. You played in a biopic before, playing Jackie. I was wondering how or if this preparation back then influenced your role in this movie.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess the process of researching the role for Jackie gave me insight into what Elizabeth might be doing to research her role and to try and find the unexpected aspects of it. We also had all the, of course, kind of inspirational tabloid materials that existed. So there was like what was the book? There's a book with like crazy title. It was like like punished for love or something like that. Like, So we had those kinds of resources too at our fingertips, which were helpful too in getting some background.
Question on the left.
Good day. My name is Kachi Ofia. I'm with Arise News in Nigeria. I'm over here. My question board is around one of the big themes of the film, which of course is age gap. And I would like you to, and my question is to everyone, anyone can take the answer. I would like you to speak on the disparity of maturity, which of course is one of the central issues when it comes to age gap relationships, which is why most people frown upon it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take it. You know, I don't know that, one of the things that was so fascinating to me about this character, and I don't know if this is going to address your question entirely, is that this is a person, my character is someone who transgresses. And how do we address that? You know, because you know, an age gap is one thing, but a relationship between an adult and a child is something else entirely. And her transgression, I believe personally, is so enormous that she sort of buries it in this idea of in her own identity, in her own performative femininity, where she casts this young person, this child, as a male figure and therefore more dominant than her. So that to me was unbelievably complicated and compelling. But it kind of leads into your question too. It's like when is age inappropriate? And it's inappropriate when people are in different places developmentally. When someone is not an adult, right? Then you're like, well, this is not appropriate, and this is why we have boundaries around that. That doesn't mean that people don't transgress, and that people haven't transgressed historically, even in terms of arranged marriages and stuff that we would deem now to be wildly inappropriate. But that's why human beings have boundaries. And in this particular movie, too, you see Gracie's transgressions as well as everybody else's. The reason this movie feels so dangerous, I think, watching it, is that people don't know where anyone's boundaries are. And so it feels scary, It's like when you go to you're in a social situation, somebody does something wildly inappropriate, you're like, why do I feel so uncomfortable? I really feel uncomfortable. I want to get out of here. It's because someone has transgressed a social boundary or an emotional boundary, and you feel unsafe. And that's what I think Todd has captured so beautifully in this film. And that I think is most compelling to me, and that what Sammy was writing about too, and that I said that also didn't seem to be apparent initially, right? Like when I first read the script, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, and then you get into it, and you're like, wow, this feels dangerous, but it is about that kind of transgression.
Anyone else?
I'll just add that there are incredibly problematic aspects of how this relationship began, which I think the film works toward a confrontation toward the end between Gracie and Joe, and particularly within Joe. And yet, this is so complicated by the fact that this relationship endured and that they maintained to survive past the scandal, the age difference, the internment in prison, and raised 3 kids. And so, yes, there's disparities in age in all kinds of relationships. There's human transgressions that are part of all of our experiences in life. But these are also opportunities for us to look at ourselves and opportunities to look at the culture that we live in. And sometimes you find disparities between your desires and the culture that in some of my films have been a recurring subject, I'd say.
Julianne and Natalie, you've both been young girls yourselves. You've worked in the Hollywood system. Natalie, you were so involved in Time's Up. There's a scene in the film that I find particularly cringeworthy. It's trying on the prom dress. It's the scale that's gift wrapped. How did you feel about that as women playing that scene?
Okay, since I'm the one who has to talk about the scale, so once again, kind of addressing what Todd was saying, so many of his movies are about identity, about who we are at any place, but who we are is not necessarily who we actually are. It's who we are as prescribed by culture, gender, time, race, like how are all of those things defining who we are? We're not always, this idea about free will and that we've kind of chosen all this for ourselves is just simply, it's not true. There are too many systems in place. And so what was interesting about that is, like I said, this is a character whose femininity was so, like I said, almost performative. You know, her belief in herself as a female somehow childlike or you know, one down sort of person to a male figure, but then also being kind of a mother and having kind of a sanctified position with that. I mean, she had this kind of strange duality that she where she defined herself, and she wasn't responsible for that necessarily. She was born into that culture, and she tells you that again and again, what her father said to her, what her brother said to her, all of the things that she believes. So what was interesting is that this is a character who's just reiterating what she's been taught. And she's, you know, that line, you try going through life without a scale, see how that goes. I mean, it's such a funny line, but what she's saying is, this has defined my life. Yeah. And I'm not gonna let my daughters, you know, not have this as well. She thinks she's helping someone. She's saying, like, this is urgent. It's been urgent for me. It will be urgent for you. So I think that's what, you know, this is a person who has been defined by this culture.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said, and really off of what you're saying about performance, like the whole film is so much about performance and the different roles we play in different environments, for different people, for ourselves even. And so, of course, performing femininity is, I think, a recurring theme in Todd's films as well, and something I'm definitely very curious about and interested in, this aspect of, I mean, even here, like the different ways that, you know, we as women are expected to behave at this festival, even compared to men, what we're supposed to, how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to carry ourselves is, the expectations are different on you all the time, and it affects how you behave, whether you're buying into it or whether you're rejecting it or whether you're doing something in between. You know, you're definitely defined by the social strictures upon you.
In this case, in those scenes I was referring to, it's also about the women, though, imposing those same strictures on their daughters, or on them. Todd, do you?
Yeah. No.
Oh, yeah, no, I think Julie described that so clearly, that these are legacies that are passed on. Very often in films I made about female characters, you see women carrying an undue or a greater burden of maintaining the family and institutions of marriage and relationships. And it was very much a part of Far From Heaven, where you see these three people who are kind of intertwined in a story, and just the very fact that one of them, which happens to be the husband, takes the tiniest step outside of, and maybe not so tiny, but for the times that he lived in, but a step outside the norms of the times. It's a ricochet effect where everybody feels it, and yet there's strange freedoms that the male characters can take part in, that the woman characters, Viola Davis's character and Julianne Moore's character, are end the film saddled with the ultimate burden of maintaining family and order, and in many ways you see aspects of that in a more distorted way in this film, but you do see women calling the shots in this film. And the shots are in question, but you see this happening, and you see the men around the women yielding to the determinations of the women around them.
Thank you. Question on the right.
Hello, my name is Thomas Dersch for Allociné. Congratulations and thank you for this great film. My question is for Natalie, Julianne, and Charles. Why do you think Todd Haynes' vision is perfect to tell this story, which often oscillates between love and cruelty? Thank you.
Take it, Charles.
Yeah, you got it, Charles. This is yours.
You know, thank you. Grateful to be here. When looking at Joe's story and just knowing that I was going to be working with Julie, Natalie, and Todd, I already had this. I was very nervous and this innate trust when it came to telling this story, and it really just started for me with looking at the kind of father Joe was and how he showed up for his kids, and how his service to his family represented this love that he had of putting his family before himself, and just being along that journey with Julie, Natalie, and Todd, these creative masters at their craft. It was very empowering. And yes, to your question. Yes.
Well, I thought that Todd's vision of, I think, the dark side under this American kind of suburban idyll that he's explored a little bit before as well, was just, obviously he has that ability to create this incredible tension and incredible drama with very subtle strokes. The way everything's framed it's never like pointing to what you're supposed to feel. It's like there's like a very restrained vision, but yet also like the music, I feel like it just is so evocative and extreme in the best way. And there's also such a sense of humor too with all of this depiction of a lot of darkness. There's always like an ability to have a glimmer in the eye. So, I mean, it was just the biggest dream to get to make this piece with Todd, and of course with Julie and with Charles as well.
Okay, my turn. Should I go? Listen, Todd's just the best. I mean, it's like I always say about Todd, I think I said this to you too, Natalie, before we started working. I was like, Todd does all the work for you. It's so relaxing. It's so wonderful to walk into, one of his films, because you're literally held by the frame. You know kind of where you are in the story by how he's framed you, and how it's sort of free. It frees me so much as an actor to know that he's done all this work. It's like, but it's true. I mean, it's like he's so meticulous with his storytelling, visually and emotionally and linguistically, if he's written the script, that you're just like, great, I start here and I end up there. But he's done it. And like I said, he also has done the work emotionally and intellectually. And it's just an absolute joy. I mean, he's just he's really such an extraordinary talent, and I feel that all of us I think we all reveled in it. We all reveled in this experience with him.
Todd, Natalie just touched on the music. Can you tell us about working with it and why the Michel Legrand soundtrack?
Yeah. This has never happened on a movie I've made before. Every director uses temp music when you're cutting a movie. Most directors do, and I do as well. But in this case, I watched The Go-Between. It had sort of fallen out of circulation in the United States, and it came on TCM last year, and I watched it, and I'd seen it years ago. It was from 1971 with Julie Christie and Alan Bates. But the music in that score, Legrand's score, sits right up in front of the story from the very beginning of the film, and raises this sense of an ominous unknown that the film you expect is going to fulfill. And I'm not sure the film ever truly does, to the degree that the music sets you up for it. And I thought that is a way of storytelling in movies that we've gone away from, that sense that it's asking the viewer to go, this music, and I hope this is what it does in May, December, it puts you on alert, and it makes you go, wait a minute, I have to think about what I'm watching here. And hopefully that's sort of a delicious invitation that has a sense of fun in it, because the music is so exquisite and so full of dread and foreboding. And so we literally, I played the music when I would show these guys the image book that I made, and so they'd look at the images that I was putting together as references, hear the music. Then I took all the cues from the music and put them in the script. Then as we shot the movie, we played the music that each cue would line up to per scene as we did it when there wasn't dialogue. Then Fonzie and I took the score and used it as the temp track to the film. And there was a certain point with our beloved composer, Marcelo Zarvos, that we realized the film is built on this score in ways that are so unique and unexpected and intricate in ways I didn't fully realize how much the kind of tone of the film was resting on that. And so in the end, we actually decided to collaborate with Marcelo's original music and his arrangement with the publishing of this original score by Michel Legrand, which I think is better known in France, way better than it is in the United States. It's used in some radio series, I think, so people are familiar with this score much more than they are in the States. But yeah, it's exquisite, and what Marcelo ultimately did with it made it our own.
Thank you. We have a question on the left.
Hi, Lina Bassi, Hollywood Foreign Press. First of all, thank you very much for your beautiful film. And I would like to ask all actors maybe to share at least one specific point or one specific detail from this, either from the script or from this discussion with the director that helped you to build such a complex character. And Todd, could you please talk about the title, please? Thank you.
I'll do the title first, because you guys have a harder question. The title is a term in English, May, December. It just doesn't translate into other languages, and it just refers to an older, younger relationship, May and December. And some people in France call it Le Macron.
title refers to in the film changes as we go along. Todd, the May France changes in focus. Who we think of relate to the title changes as the film goes along. At first, it's
Who we think of as that relationship?
yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, as Elizabeth's character, although they are the same age. So I'm not sure what the question, how the question refers to the May-December aspect of the
Well, at first,
title.
we're thinking of it as being Joe and Gracie, but then Natalie's relationship creeps in there.
Right. But what's so, the tension is partly due to the fact that Natalie and Charles's characters are the same age. And so she stands in for Julianne at the age that Julianne was, Gracie was, when she and Joe first came together, when Joe was a teenager. So that, and then ultimately depicts Julianne in this pivotal scene in the film, that letter that she reads of Gracie. And it's almost like you see Gracie at the age that she was at when they fell in love. But it's partly due to the fact that she is that age. Elizabeth is that age.
Now we're coming back to the actors. You're not off the hook with the question about the detail.
Every day we filmed this movie in 23 days, and everything was so just intentional and magical, and that just is a testament to just the environment that Todd created that just allowed us to come in and just collaborate freely, and having Natalie and Julie as my scene partners just only elevated just my experience, which was something that's really hard to put into words. And
Yeah, I can. I'll corroborate that, because the thing that I remember, Nat, is that we were burning through this. Like I said, we had 23 days, so we really had no time at all. The days were really, really quick. And we'd kind of spent a long time in the morning on one scene. I don't even remember what scene that was, but it left us. Todd was like, we're going to go ahead to the dinner scene. And I realized I've been thinking about the morning's work, and I hadn't really thought about the afternoon's work, and I had 6 pages of dialogue. It's the one where I talk about, how we met, and he was in this class, and I don't remember this, I remember that, and we had to set the table, and I had the whole milk thing with Gabriel, and Natalie's like, and then what happened, and I'm like, and I have to go, blah, 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 blah. So I was terrified, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this, and Nat said, you got this. And I was so grateful. Because I realized like that, and I still say it to myself. I really do. I'm like, you got this. But it was such a wonderful group of people. I think everybody was so invested. Everyone was so connected. Everyone was so collaborative and supportive of one another. And it meant so much to have these kind of partners doing this work, and to have Natalie say that to me. We didn't really know each other. We only knew each other from like awards shows before we did this. But I was like, I love her. I just love her. And it gave me the energy, it gave me the focus to get through that 6 pages of dialogue, and that's no small thing.
Well, thanks. The feeling's mutual. Yeah, I remember. I think one of the first scenes we did was the dress scene.
Yeah.
And that was such a monster scene too, because it was all kind of, depending on where she moved, it would affect the shot. And it was so magical getting to watch Julianne as part of my character because it's what I wanted to do anyway. I just wanted to kind of watch, and I had to keep reminding myself that I was in the scene also. But luckily, I could use it as part of something Elizabeth would do. But yeah, it was just, it was a really fun, meaningful, and fast shoot.
I'll just add a small thing. On the technical scale, these guys had to keep performing. In that one scene, we were shooting through a two-way mirror, the dress shop scene. But most of the time when they were playing to the mirror, they were playing to a camera lens with marks for, the lens was their view of themselves, and then there was a mark for the view of the other actor.
Oh, that was so confusing.
I forgot that.
And so these guys are conducting those incredibly compelling scenes that are single-shot scenes, looking into a lens and playing it as looking at themselves. And of course, for us, the viewer, there is no mirror. We are the mirror looking at them. But that kind of technical dexterity, nuance, subtlety, the way they're looking at themselves and each other and back and forth, and how that relay is informing the whole narrative of the story in a microcosm, it was just incredible, just from a technical point of view, really a challenge.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm afraid our time's up. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you very much.